this is a conversation I'm so excited about, in big part because, Shani, I've been following your account on Instagram for quite a while, and I had listened to some of the podcasts that you had up that are a bit older that show up on like my feed. And then just last month, I became a Patreon subscriber to your podcast that you're doing now. And so it's been really helpful for me to learn more about the experience of being single, and especially for my role within the childless community, how to be a better advocate or ally or supporter of people who are single and childless. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation. I know that you were the first person that everyone kept saying when I said, who do you want me to invite on? Everyone was like, invite Shani. So
That's so
I'm just very
sweet.
excited. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Okay, so I'm going to do your quick bio. So for those of you who are not familiar with Shani, she is an author and podcaster. So she wrote a book called A Single Revolution, Don't Look for a Match, Light One. And she also has her podcast, which you can subscribe to on Patreon. And she says in her bio that she's not an advocate for singlehood. She's an advocate for people being happy while single. And there's a difference. Her podcast launched in April of 2019 in the hopes of giving single women content that for once didn't revolve around dating, and to support singles around the world in shedding societal shame. Shani has lived in Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Chicago, Illinois, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Brooklyn, New York, and is currently living in New Orleans. That is one of the top places I have on my to visit list that I have not visited yet. Yes. So anyway, I'm super excited to have you here. And I would love to just start by asking, like, how did you start doing this work of like specifically being a public voice for people who are single?
That's a really good question. Probably I couldn't not do it anymore. There was there were about 10 really, really difficult years of my singlehood, the first 10. They were horrific, they were miserable, they were completely detrimental to my mental health, physical health. They were the worst. I mean, I don't really have to describe them for anyone who's experienced singlehood. Like, you get it. You've all been there. And it was a decade of it. And I remember thinking, like, there were a few moments that were like really early kernels of this career that popped into my head. But one of them was like, this can't be for nothing. Everything that has happened, that continues to happen to me, it's so bad it's funny. Like, this can't be for nothing. And I knew it was going to have some purpose. I knew I was getting this education for a reason. And eventually I was able to like pull myself out of that singlehood misery, that like hellhole of just despair and hopelessness. And I recognized that wasn't what my life deserved. It deserved a lot more than that. And I was able to pull myself out of the hole. And essentially my career has been just throwing a ladder down, because if I can climb out, absolutely anybody can, literally anybody can. And I just wanted to help. And there was a lot of like, there were a lot of nerves. There was a lot of negative feedback from people in my life saying like, you can't talk about this kind of stuff. Boys won't like you. And I was like, they didn't like me before. What's to lose? What's to lose? At least now I can help somebody. So I just couldn't not do it. It was becoming painfully obvious that this was the kind of work that I was meant to do. And so I did it, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it because it is actually helping.
Well, I think it's so cool that you took what you're experiencing and turned it into this avenue for helping so many people, because that is, I think, a rare thing, especially if it's within like a topic area that like hasn't really existed yet in public discourse in the way that you're doing it. I mean, I know, there are other people who talk about singlehood and, thought leaders in that community. But I don't know, I see some parallels to my work with the childless community in just being kind of surprised at how many people are childless, and in your case, like how many people are single, and how little discourse there is publicly about it in a way that feels good, and that is actually representing the people who have like lived experience with it, instead of like having all these articles and information that's written by people who are not experiencing it and like telling us what we should be doing.
And charging
So
money to tell us what we should be doing as well.
exactly. So I'm just seeing some parallels there. And I just think it's very cool because it is, I think, a unique personality of someone who will take your experience and then be like, I'm gonna be a public voice for this. I'm gonna try to like use this in this way. So anyway, I just think you're cool.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. Guys,
so
is
so
it
yeah.
important for me to point out my stance on kids? Like, is that beneficial to the community?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you don't mind. I wasn't gonna ask because I don't know if like people want to talk about it, but if you're comfortable talking about it, yeah.
Very. So I'm child free by choice, and I always have been, but I haven't been vocal about it that long. I would say the last, I guess maybe 4 to 5 years, I've been pretty open about my child-free choice, but for a long time I wasn't because I was afraid of how it would be received. I was afraid of what people would think about me. It's very similar to the incoming that childless people receive. So yeah, I do not want to have children. That is not my calling in life, but being an auntie very much is. And tomorrow morning I'm going over to my best friend's house to make arts and crafts for a 3-year-old's mermaid birthday party. And that
That's amazing.
that I was also meant to do for sure. I'm so excited. But yeah, I am child free by choice.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I feel like when I was making peace with being childless, I turned to so many like voices of people who were child free. And
Mhm.
I learned so much in terms of like helping me reframe the experience and having society tell you like your life's going to be miserable, you're going to be like so sad, you can't find fulfillment or joy, and you're just missing out on all the things you're supposed to experience. And to have people, both in my life personally, because I've always had friends who are child free by choice, but so getting to talk to them and maybe new ways about it, and like finding people to talk that we're like talking about it online and in articles and all of that is just so helpful. So I appreciate you sharing your experience about that too. And I know you talk a little bit about that on your platforms, but yeah, I love hearing from people who are child free by choice because it's such a nice perspective shift to hear from people that are like, I chose this as the first option, and I'm always like, awesome, tell me why. I want to embody this. I want to like get here. So okay, let's get into the first question. So my first question for you is really about navigating bingos. So if hearing the word bingo in this context is new for you, this is used to kind of describe those annoying comments or questions that you get that are really common, like so common that you could add them to a bingo card. And if you went and socialized for like a week, you might have your whole bingo card filled because it's like those things that you can anticipate people are going to ask because it's so often. So I know from, the childless community, there's a few that we get a lot, like, why don't you adopt? Or have you tried whatever it is, fill in the blank? Or you don't know true love until you have a child, or like God has other plans for you. So I'm very familiar with like the childless bingos because I get them a lot, but I know that being single, you've got your own whole set of bingos that you get. And so what are some of the common bingos that people who are single get? And do you have strategies for how people can like manage them or navigate them?
Sure. I mean, I think most people are pretty familiar with the single ones at this point. It's always some piece of unsolicited dating advice. It's never empathy. It's never kindness. It's never warmth or love. It's always just advice that we did not ask for. And that advice is also pretty much, no, I'm sorry, 100% of the time that advice is bullshit. It is just the first thing that happened to pop into someone's head. So why does that have to be the thing that's going to work for you? That's ridiculous. But I'm the ridiculous person for not taking that advice to heart and being grateful for it and saying thank you. So strategies for bingos are pretty simple. Always throw it back at the person who said it. A bingo is not your responsibility. It is theirs. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I don't believe in clapbacks. I don't find them satisfying. They are momentarily a quick hit of dopamine, but if I have the bravery to actually say something to somebody, I want way more than a quick hit. I want change. So throw it back on the person who said it. You can do this in a number of passive ways, such as getting up from the table and leaving dinner, which is always your right. Venmo them your half of it later. Don't worry about that. Just get up and leave. You do not owe anyone your presence, especially if they have insulted you. I also like just a good old fashioned blank stare directly into their eyeballs. I love that. Silence and staring. Give it a minute, see what happens. Like, make it their responsibility. It is not yours. One of the worst societal norms is that whoever is seen as the social deficit is automatically responsible for every question anyone asks, or everything that comes out of someone's mouth becomes our burden to bear. It was never
Mhm.
our burden to bear. Their manners are their own burden to bear. And just
Yep.
because I'm single, or just because you don't have children, that doesn't make you responsible for other people's shit behavior. So don't take responsibility for bingos. Do not feel burdened by the obligation to know what to say or to know how to fire back. Stay silent, stare directly into their face until they understand what they've done, get up and leave the table. If you have the bandwidth, you can say to someone something that puts things back on them, such as, what do you mean by that? What makes you say that to me? Why did you say that to me? What are you hoping I receive from what you just said? But a good old fashioned, what do you mean by that,
Mhm.
really works, because it's the first time they've ever had to ask themselves that question. It's the first time they've ever had to think about what they've just said, because I guarantee you it came out very passively. So
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, just kick it back. Imagine you are playing tennis and just smack it back as hard as you can. Like, I'm done with politeness. I am done with smiling and nodding our way through this. It doesn't
Mhm.
change anything. And if you need help, if you need fortitude when you do this, remember that you're not just doing it for you. You are doing it for everyone they encounter after you. So you are saving someone else from the pain you just experienced. And that really helps me bolster the like bravery to do anything in these situations. I know it's not just about me, it's about every other single woman they're ever going to encounter. And that I like. So direct stare into the eyeballs, my friend. See how it goes.
Well, I really like those suggestions, and clarifying that it's not anyone's responsibility to have to like take on these bingos that we get. And I think one of the things that makes it really awkward, and you kind of touched on this, is that we've got social norms that say that you are not supposed to make people uncomfortable. So when somebody is bingoing you, I'm guessing most of them don't realize that it's going to make you uncomfortable, or that they're saying something that they shouldn't be, because like you said, it's passive. There's not like thought behind it. They haven't ever had to like question it. It just like comes out, and it feels like just natural conversation on their end. And I think when we respond in ways that are unexpected or that are confronting, it can put people back into a position of maybe experiencing what we're now experiencing that they put us in, but also then we can kind of get blamed for like, why'd you have to make that so awkward? Why'd you make that uncomfortable? Like
Oh, they're
you're
going to get offended. They are going
right,
to
like
get offended, but you were offended first. You didn't
right.
start this.
Well, that's what I love about it. So I would just note, because I feel like I can hear maybe people thinking this that are watching, that um, at least with childlessness, I would guess that this could be the case for some people who are single too. That if someone's in a place where there's like a lot of grief involved in what they're going through, then I think it can be harder to use those strategies of educating someone, or like um, coming back with comments that will continue the conversation, because it's scary to not know how we're going to react, like if grief comes up. So I'm wondering, if someone is in like really deep grief and they're feeling like, well, if someone asks me that, or I get into dialogue about this, I might start crying. I might like, and not that there's anything wrong with that either. I've cried through a lot of conversations, and sometimes that is nice to see how uncomfortable the other person gets. But I'm just wondering about, for people who are in that deep grief, do you have other suggestions for like how they could respond to a bingo that will also um, focus on taking care of their needs in the moment, and that grief that gets
Refuse.
triggered?
Refuse. My grief and I are not responding to that. My grief and I are leaving now.
Yeah.
Like, the truth is always the way to respond. And
Yeah.
if you are nervous about getting emotional in front of other people, I get it. We've been trained to be deeply shamed by showing emotion in public, by showing emotion to other people. But that shame is lying.
Yeah.
Human emotion is not incorrect. Human emotion is not the incorrect response, especially if you are grieving. That is never the incorrect response. We take on and absorb so much badness and so many bad feelings so that other people don't have to get offended, even though they were the one that offended us first. That dies with
Right.
me. That dies with me. Like, it must stop. It absolutely must stop. We are not sponges. We
Yeah.
are not sponges for other people's bad manners. We're not.
Yep. I love that answer. It feels very empowering. And I know one that I've used before if I find myself in that place is just saying like, you know, that's a really painful topic for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about it. Can we talk about something else?
Mm-hmm.
And I like it because it does acknowledge the grief. It puts it out there that like you're hitting on something that hurts, and maybe you should think about why you're asking people that question. But it also ends the conversation, so it's letting them know like we're not talking about this. Like come up with a new topic, right?
I mean, would they want their grief poked at? Everyone
Right.
is experiencing some element of grief for something. I don't think any of us make it through life with grief free.
Yeah.
I'm 41 years old and I'm grieving the fact that my future wedding is not going to be just a wedding. It's going to be a relief for someone looking at me at my 41-year-old ass, or whatever age I am when I get married. I am grieving the fact that my wedding won't ever get to be like everybody else's. It will always be seen as a relief to somebody ignorant, but somebody. And I mean, in addition to just the normal course of being a human being and grieving the loss of humans we love, pets we love, friendships we love that have ended, there's no one who's moving through the world with no grief.
Yeah.
And I think reminding them that grief exists is a really quick way to connect with them on a human level and remind them of your humanity.
Yeah.
Like you just asked a question about something that I have a lot of grief about. Can I ask you about what you're grieving? Can we talk about that too? Is that something that you would like to discuss over appetizers? Because we can if you want, but it's going to get messy. And I
Right.
don't
Right.
mind mess. I do not mind mess, but I don't think they realize that that's what their questions cause. Their questions cause a reaction, a response. Like we get to have equal and opposite responses to things. We don't just have to absorb their inconsiderateness. Is that a word?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Love it. All right. So, my next question for you is about traditions and celebrations, because I think that societally, a lot of traditions and milestones that we mark or like celebrations that we have like templates for of like here's how you react in this situation, so many of them revolve around relationships, romantic relationships, marriage, or kids, and even holidays that that aren't supposed to be kid focused, like you know, Christmas or just like holidays that we celebrate, they often become very focused on traditions for people who are partnered and kids.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering, like for those who are single and or don't have kids, how can we start to like recognize other types of milestones that may not be ones that we think about because they're not the ones society is telling us to mark? But how can we think about those milestones or like things in our lives that we're excited for and want to celebrate, and start planning ways to celebrate that in our own way, like building new traditions?
Yeah, you stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. Stop waiting for the world to give you permission. Stop waiting for someone you know to throw you a party. Do it yourself. You cannot wait for society to give you permission to celebrate the things you want to celebrate. If you want to sit on your couch and be sad that no one ever celebrates you, that is your choice. But personally, I would like to throw a party for all kinds of things. Yesterday, I saw the best celebration I've ever seen in my life. A single woman threw herself a party to celebrate her 1 year Duolingo streak.
That's
I'm telling
hard.
you, I screamed, I scrimped at the screen. I was so excited. It was like green decorations and that little owl in the shape of a cake. It was so cute. But you have to stop waiting for someone to give you permission. Nobody is ever just going to show up at your door and give you everything that you want. Like
Yeah.
it cannot be passive. It has to be active. And I'm sorry that so much burden falls on sort of people that the world loves to shove into a corner to celebrate ourselves. I'm very sorry. I wish that things were just, I wish they just showed up for us. I wish there was a section in the greeting card aisle at Target that was just for us. There probably isn't going to be, but there is on Etsy. Like you just have to do it for yourself. You have, like, you choose what you celebrate and you choose how.
Yeah.
And anyone that needs you to justify your celebration is simply not invited to it. That's it. That is it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, I think also we can overburden ourselves with the idea of celebrations and marking milestones. It can be very simple. It can be very affordable. It can be very personal. It can be very intimate. You can do it alone. It doesn't matter. Like however you mark occasion, whatever occasion you want to mark, you have to do it. You have to stop waiting for permission to do it. It's your choice to do it. I think that's really what kind of frustrates me in the single space is people thinking they have no agency.
Yeah.
And we do. We don't always have bandwidth. Those are two different things. I did not throw a party for the launch of my book. That is the biggest thing I've ever accomplished, apart from passing the bar. It might be better than passing the bar because I don't even practice law. It's the biggest thing I've ever done, the hardest thing I've ever done, that's for sure. And I didn't throw a party because I simply did not have the bandwidth. I was
Yeah.
not in an emotional place where I could do that. And part of me is sad, but the other part of me isn't, because every day that my book is on Amazon is a celebration for me. So I
Yeah.
don't. But if you have the bandwidth, take the initiative and do whatever you want, however you want to celebrate. Also, it can help to release expectations on other people. A lot of the times we're let down in celebrations because other people don't get as excited as we do. I have news for you. No one is ever as excited as the couple at the baby shower. No one is ever as excited as the people at the altar getting married.
Yeah.
Nobody, maybe their moms, but like nobody is ever going to be as excited as you or as invested as you in your celebrations. All the more reason for you to customize them to yourself. And whoever is down for that, whoever wants to show up and celebrate with you, great. But don't expect other people to hop on board with your level of enthusiasm, or else the party is ruined. Like that's a
Yeah.
huge trap in singlehood, is wanting other people to be the exact same level of excited as you are. That's probably not going to happen. I hope it does, but if it doesn't, please don't let that distract from your celebration. And I also don't think that it's just happening to you because you're single or because you're childless. I think it's happening because other people are human, and we are never as excited as the person who has something to celebrate.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that it takes a bit more creativity, right? Because if, I don't know, for like celebrations and milestones that society tells us to acknowledge, there's also just like built-in kits, right? Like everybody knows how to throw a baby shower because we have probably attended them, and there's like a million, like you can just Google it and get a billion articles on like how to throw a baby shower or how to be a good bridesmaid or whatever it is. Um, we don't have, like, I have looked, it's a lot harder to find ideas for like how to celebrate things that are happening in your life that may not be as acknowledged, like widely acknowledged. And maybe that's partly because they're unique, like the year streak on Duolingo. Maybe there's not like a kit or a template for that
Oh,
because,
there is now.
okay, well, there
There
is
is
now,
now.
and I love it. But I love that. I think we have to get more creative, and I think it also might, this also feels like a call for us to be aware of like what's happening in our friends' lives or in the lives of like family members or other people who we love, who might have things that are really big moments for them that we might not be showing up for, like that we can maybe be better about. And I saw this actually, someone had posted in the online community that I run that their friend had just run. I think it was like a marathon or like a really long hike, or I think it was hiking. Like they had hiked like a certain number of miles, and it was like a huge number. And she was like, "How could I like acknowledge this?" And people came up with so many fun ideas of like ways to do it. And I can't remember what she actually like ended up doing, but she definitely um had some really fun ways to acknowledge and celebrate that with her friend. And I just thought that was cool because we don't, well, maybe other people are doing this and I'm just not, but like I just don't think it's as common that we're thinking about how to do that for others in our lives as well. And maybe we can start a new culture of making that more common, and that can lead to other people doing that for us too. But I also love the idea of creating that for yourself and thinking about what you want to celebrate and just doing it, just coming up with what that looks like. Maybe that's something you do on your own. Maybe it's something you do with just one friend or one family member, or, you know, one other person that you know, or maybe it's like something big where you throw a big party. But um, I like that there's starting to be more kind of ideas shared about this. Like I think even the idea of like Friendsgiving, something that's becoming very common and came out of a need for people who are wanting to be with friends at the holidays or not having like family to celebrate with.
I
So
wanted to
yeah,
enjoy celebrating the holidays, and sometimes celebrating with family needs a vacation afterwards in and of itself. But
yeah,
there's no reason that I feel like, how many different party themes can a baby shower possibly have? Like, have we not done them all? Like, I don't
yeah,
want to come up with themes for existing celebrations. I want new celebrations, far less
right.
basic, far less boring. I think it's effort well spent if you come up with a party idea that is truly unique. That's so refreshing to me. I'm bored by everything else, to be honest with you.
Yep, I totally agree. Okay, so I know that there are people who are single and not wanting to date, not looking for partnership. And there are also people who are single but would like to be partnered. So, what advice do you have for someone who is single but wanting to be partnered, and how to balance enjoying your current life and what you have going on while also balancing that hope for finding a partner in the future?
Whoever told you you couldn't? Whoever said that both things could not exist simultaneously and effortlessly? Both things are allowed to exist in the same person at once. It is very possible to value your singlehood, to be grateful for the opportunities it is giving you and everything it's teaching you, while simultaneously wanting a partner. There is no law that those two things cannot exist in perfect harmony. I live that way every single day. I love it. There is no being single does not dull the shine on your life unless you let it. That is a
Yeah.
choice that I believe people are making. I think we had a lot of help making that choice. I think the world reiterates to us at every opportunity just how less than a single life is, or a childless life is. Um, but that doesn't mean it's true. That doesn't mean societal shame is true. That doesn't, I don't know if you've met society lately, but I tend to think it doesn't know its ass from its elbow. I genuinely don't think that we can allow social norms to dictate our emotions, feelings, or self-worth. There is nothing that says you cannot appreciate your single time while also wanting a partner. And you have got to let go of the notion that if you like your single life too much, that's somehow communicating to the universe that you don't want a partner. It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous notion. We also had help coming to that conclusion, but it is, you, in my opinion, it has to be shed. It has to just be thrown in the garbage. There is no reason to hang on to that nonsense narrative, because I think the opposite is true. Who is more likely to connect with a partner? Somebody who is miserable and desperate, or someone who is happy and appreciative of every day of their life? It doesn't make sense when you think about it, but people will so rarely think about it. So I'm trying to get people to face these very logical realities of singlehood instead of continuing to cling to nonsense narratives.
Yeah. Um, I know this isn't like a direct comparison, but I do feel like when I was still thinking I'd be a mom and I was like hopeful of that and trying to hold space for like this may happen one day. Um, there were things that I thought like when I'm a mom, I want to do this, or I want to have this in my life when I'm a mom. And in coming to terms with like, okay, that's not going to be part of my life. I have tried to think about not how to try to replicate the parenting experience, because like that's not possible, but like I'll give you an example, like finding ways to bring play into my life. Because one of the things what I like to do with kids the most, my favorite kid age is like toddler age, like 2 to 6, because I love playing with kids that age. And so one of the things I am more mindful of now is like, how can I bring play into my life in ways that feel really fun and that bring that aspect of like joy and just like playful moments in the life that I have now that doesn't involve a kid. And that play looks very, very different than what I would do with a kid. But I do find ways to like bring play into my life. So I'm wondering if there's, I know it's not an exact comparison, but if there's maybe something, if you see any similarities in this idea of like embracing what you have now and not waiting to do certain things that you want to do, again recognizing that like some things are part of an experience that we're not having, right? But like maybe there are things you can bring in that you're putting on hold that you don't need to be. Does that make sense?
Of course, the world tells you you can't leave the house unless you have someone to go with you. That's
Right.
ridiculous. You can leave the house whenever you want. You can go do whatever you want. The only thing I think you can't do without a partner is get a tax break. Like you can do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. There's nothing like if you, again, if you don't have the bandwidth, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel comfortable, you never have to do anything alone.
Yeah.
But if what's holding you back from going to Italy is being in love, go to Italy. Like there's no reason not to. Like I used to
Yeah.
think when I was back in my misery days, like I'm saving Italy because I want to do it with a partner. Like I've
Mhm.
been to Paris alone a ton. I've been like every trip I've taken solo, I've been very confident in that, really happy with that travel and so excited, but I was always saving Italy because I don't want to do that without a partner. All it was doing was keeping me away from Italy. That's all it was
Yeah.
doing from a place I wanted to be. It's ridiculous when I say it out loud now, but I know that a lot of people are still in that space and that's valid. I just want
Yeah.
people to know that they don't have to remain there if they don't want to. There's no aspect of life that you have to miss because you're by yourself. And in fact, like the experience of doing things alone is so unique to doing things in partnership. You meet people when you're out by yourself. Like there's just this sort of natural um flow of it, just like there is in partnership. Like if you're out as a couple, you're probably going to meet other couples. If you're out alone, you're probably going to meet other people who are out alone. You might not want to meet all of those people, but like there's really nothing holding you back from doing anything just because you don't have a partner. I'm tired of people missing things because they can't find a friend to go with them. That's that makes me very sad. And I know that social anxiety comes into play, and there's a lot of reasons to be nervous about going places alone. But if you can, you have permission to. Like there is
Yeah.
nothing that has to stop you from that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna move into a question about friendships. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen? Because I know you've got like a good pulse on just kind of like the single community. What are the some of the challenges that you see coming up when people are trying to navigate a friendship where one person is single and the other friend is partnered?
Yeah, your married friends are not smarter than you. Your married friends are not better than you. Your married friends are not superior to you. And your married friends do not have some secret to life that got them a spouse. Like you're not more damaged than your married friends. You don't need more therapy than your married probably less. Like it's just there's so much that the world has told us about people in partnership, and all that we have been told has also been told to them. So
Yeah.
people who are in partnership find themselves in this elevated position where they feel very comfortable speaking down to, the same way that childless people are spoken down to by parents. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very similar.
Mhm.
You can't possibly know what this is like. My life is like this. You can't possibly know. I can't know, but I can empathize. If you could give that a try, I think we would get
Yeah.
along a little bit better. But yeah, there's going to be this element of superiority. Another one of those moments that led to me doing this job in 2014, I think it was, maybe it was a little earlier. I went on a vacation with two couples that I was really close to in college, and there were five of us, so there were four of them and me. And they obviously got rooms with a real bed, and I was in the room with bunk beds. And I kept thinking, like, while I'm lying there on this bunk bed in this ridiculous sleeping, it was a child's bunk bed. And I'm like looking up at the bunk above me and I'm like, there's two of them. A couple could sleep in here. Why is it just assumed that I am the one that gets the worst sleeping situation because I'm not partnered?
Right.
It's ridiculous. I'm just as adult. I am just deserving of privacy. I am just as deserving of dignity. But it's just assumed that the single one gets the shittiest situation. And the superiority element of couplehood is really the most prevalent thing in friendships and partnerships. By the way, in friendships with people who are partnered that are worth having, you probably won't experience this. If somebody makes you feel like a third wheel, don't go out with them again, because there are couples who are dying for a third person to come and sit at the table at dinner, and they can have new fresh conversations and hear about your world and you can hear about theirs. And it's like the right couples for you to be friends with will not make you feel bad for being single. That's a great way to identify who's worth spending time with and who isn't. But yeah, knowing that their assumed superiority is nonsense. There is no, you don't get a stamp on your forehead when you get married that says you're better than the single ones. Nope, you're identical to me. My love, you are identical to me. And
Yep.
so sticking up for yourself, I know, is very uncomfortable, and letting somebody know how that they've been playing superior to you is very uncomfortable. But you can do one of two things. You can say something and face the discomfort, or you can deal with it year after year until you explode and lose the friendship. So it's up
Right.
to you. Up to you.
I do think I personally, so coming from the perspective of someone who is partnered, I think it's weird that so many people who are partnered are always looking for like couples friends and like wanting to hang out all together all the time. I don't like, I think that's weird. I wish that that would become less common or like less expected because um I don't always want to pick the same type of friends that my partner does. I think it's weird. Like, why do we all have to hang out together? And a lot of times, I don't know. I wish that we could, I wish societally that that would change because, I'll give you an example. Like, when the last city I lived in, the best friend that I made there, we hung out a few times a month for 2 years, and my partner never met them until I was moving, and my friend was like, I really want to meet your husband. And I was like, okay, come over for dinner. But like, I don't know. It just, that felt very normal to me because she was someone that I got along with. I wanted to spend time with. I liked the intimacy that we had when the two of us were together. And like, I just wanted to be like, have that time with her. And so I don't know. I think, I know this is, I don't want to like take too much time talking about this, but I think it's weird. I wish societally that would change, that there's this expectation that if you have a partner, you're
I think
just
it's
going to be together all the
insecurity.
time.
I think it's insecurity. I think if
Yeah.
you place your whole identity and your whole sense of self-worth in the fact that you're in a couple, the only people that will be good enough for you to hang out with, that will make you feel secure to hang out with, will also be reflecting that same kind of dynamic back to you.
Yeah.
So what people that can only hang out in pairs of couples, that can only have couples nights, I worry about a lot of things, but I worry about their self-worth the most because they're
Yeah.
attaching it to the fact that they're in a relationship.
Well, I guess that's like a call in to people who are coupled. Um, you don't have to always be with your partner. You can have friendships outside of that.
I love
Um,
hanging out with people who are couples. I love that. I love going to dinner. Well, the ones who don't fight in front of me. I really like
yeah.
going with them. It's so fun. I like because I'm inevitably closer to the woman in the relationship if it's a heterosexual couple. But I learn so much more about her talking with him and hearing his perspective of a relationship with her. And it I don't see a downside to it. I think it's lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. So, oh, I didn't get to the second part. So, like, have you found strategies to kind of bridge that gap? I know you touched on this a little bit, but let's say somebody who is single is really feeling like they're having a hard time navigating that friendship and just feeling maybe not valued or seen, and they're really like struggling with it. What like do you have advice for strategies?
Yeah, walk away. Like you don't have to maintain friendships that make you feel bad about yourself. You
Yeah.
don't even have to formally end them. You can simply float off into the distance like a forgotten balloon. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to confront people all the time. If they're not making you feel valued, if they're not putting into the friendship what you are putting into the friendship, you don't have to stick around. A terrible narrative is that we have to cling on to every single friendship we have till the day we die.
Yeah.
That is not true. We don't hang on to every romantic partner that we have throughout our lives. It's likely that we go through breakups and things change and we meet new people. That's allowed to happen with friends as well. Um, Especially when they're draining you, when they're making you feel bad about yourself, when it feels like this burden on your life or this huge problem on your life, you can let it go. You're allowed to let it go. And if you don't want to let it go, if it is worth it to you to put in the effort, you do need to have a conversation with the friend. And if they're worth keeping, you'll probably be able to do that. And hopefully they will be able to receive it.
Yep. I think there's a lot of similarities here with trying to bridge the gap between moms and non-moms. Um, yeah. So it seems like I agree with what you said. I think that would work for people who are also trying to bridge that gap with their friendships.
Mhm.
The friends who have shown up for me in that are the ones that are good friends because they care about me and they are empathetic and they want to listen to me and they want my needs to be met in the friendship. And if someone's not doing that, then they're why are you trying to hang on to it? Okay. Um Okay, so I think society often, you touched on this a little bit with when you're talking about the traveling situation, but I think society often sees being married and having kids as like two kind of initiations that we get into adulthood. And sometimes we are, if we don't have those two things, we're seen as like not fully adult somehow, or like irresponsible or not fully capable. And so yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Like, how can we respond in situations where this is coming up?
Respond. The only way to not respond is to say nothing. The only way to not respond is to let it happen to you without speaking up and reminding someone, I am a grown woman. I am a grown man. I'm a grown person. You are treating me like a child. It's ridiculous that being married is like a second graduation. I think that's ridiculous. And there are certain realities of being a single person far later in life than you thought, and almost all of them are financial, that make your life look younger than a married
Yeah,
person. It's like, well, if I was paying half rent, I could probably afford to make my house look a bit more polished. I
right.
could probably afford to go on the same number of vacations that they go on. I
Mhm.
could probably be going out as often as they go out, but I can't because I'm single and I'm paying for everything by myself. And I have been for 20 years.
Yeah.
It helps actually. Do the math on that sometime. Split your rent in half and then multiply it by the number of years you've been single, and then stop feeling bad about the things you cannot afford, because there's just endless financial benefit to people who are going through life as a pair. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of that answer, I think.
Yeah. All right, love it. Um, okay, so we had so many questions come in. So the questions I've asked you so far were generated within the online community that I host from our singles group. And there were, I have like probably 7 questions on there that we didn't get to. But I want to open it up to people who are joining live and getting to some of those questions. And if we get through those, maybe we'll come back to some of these. But I don't think we'll get through everything because people were just so eager to hear what you have to say. Um, so let's see. Okay, I'm just opening up what's come in. All right, do you have any tips regarding? Oh wait, let's see. Okay, this is also a friendship one. I was just checking to make sure it's not one we already did, but it's a bit different. So, do you have tips regarding navigating friendships where the other person assumes that you have more time and energy to be doing the majority of the emotional labor and initiation of activities because you're single?
Tell them. Tell them that you don't. Tell them that just because your life doesn't look like their life, that doesn't mean that it's not busy. There are a lot of different ways to be busy. Also, doing whatever you want counts as busy. There is no,
Yeah.
this is hierarchy. This is your friend placing you in a hierarchy and giving you the shit tasks because they are more important, because they're caring for a child, or because they have a husband at home or a wife at home or whatever it is. Just let them know that you are not beneath them. You are not their assistant. You are not even the friendship's assistant.
Yep.
And if this is not going to be even, if we are not going to have an even exchange of effort and friendship and responsibility, then we don't have to continue with this friendship, because what I'm not going to do is participate in a relationship that's unbalanced, friendship, romantic, or otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah, let them know that you're not their assistant. That's the way I would do it. And this also works, hopefully, with family, because singles are very often the default caretaker for ailing parents, or
Mhm.
just the default anything, any job that the siblings with spouses and children want to do, they just give it all to the single person because they don't have anything going on. Your life is going on, and your life is just as important, whatever it entails. This happens in the workplace constantly. And speaking up for ourselves is something I wish we didn't have to do as often as we have to do it. But if
Mhm.
you never say anything, you're just going, the resentment is going to build, the frustration is going to build, and eventually you're going to hit a tipping point. And I would so much rather we advocate for ourselves and see results from that. And also, when you advocate for yourself and no results come from that, that's an indication to you that you are in a relationship you don't need to be in.
Yeah. I think that the advocacy piece can be really difficult if you're not used to doing it. And I think it's like it takes practice, but it also takes, I feel like before you even can do it, you've got to do like unpacking and deconstructing of all this like messaging that you've been told, like maybe you've self-stigmatized of like believing some of the things you've been told about being single or not having kids. I feel like you have to like kind of unpack some of that where you like believe that like yeah you are worthy of all these things, like you don't have to deal with all of this, you're not the person who's like you're not doing anything wrong, you're not in like a lesser situation. um I feel like it's easier to advocate once you have done some of that work within yourself to counter some of those stigmas that you may have like internalized so that you can, I don't know, get into that like place of feeling empowered and like feeling strong in that.
You can also do it in real time. You're
Yeah.
never going to be able to develop these skills if you don't practice them. And I see people saying that it doesn't work with family, and to some degree, I agree with them. But when it doesn't, when you can let your family know that you're not their assistant and
Mm-hmm.
they don't change, they don't agree with you, whatever, just don't do what they ask you to do. Just
Yeah.
let them see what it's like when you are not their default assistant, their default task doer. Say
Mm-hmm.
no and find out that the world will not end after you say no. Find out that they will still love you after you say no. And if they don't, that is so their problem, not yours. Like your lovability is not contingent on you serving other people.
Yep. Okay, so someone else asked, I'd like to hear Shani's thoughts on the spinster label.
I hate that word. Oh, it's so old. It's an antique. Why are we still using it? Why are we still using spinster? First of all, spinster, I think, also only applies to a certain age bracket, and it's a very narrow one. Like there's fanged dowager is my favorite. There's like a list of what they call single women at different ages, and they're wildly witchy, and I'm absolutely obsessed with them. But no, I hate the word spinster. It's ugly. And I don't mean ugly in a visual. I mean, it's ugly. And when people say it, they're usually saying it in a negative term. And I know people have tried to reclaim the word in a positive, but I don't, I fight against enough grains all day, every day. Like I don't have to care about the word spinster. I can just refuse to have it in my lexicon.
Yep. All right. So this is just coming from an ignorant place from me. Are there people within the single community that are like wanting to take that word back? Okay. So
They
yeah.
absolutely can. There's a great podcast called Spinsterhood Reimagined. My friend Lucy does it. There's also a book called The Spinster Diaries, and I had the author on the podcast. I'm like, where is it on my bookshelf? I want to show you. Uh, it's called The Spinster Diaries. Read it. It's great. Like I just don't like the word. I'm not going to use the word, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean the words can't.
Yeah. Um, okay. So and yeah, I think that's great to hear the multiple perspectives because I think for people outside of communities that are trying to learn and understand, not that I like, I feel like anyone should know that like using the word spinster for somebody else is like not ever okay. But I don't know, it's helpful for me to kind of hear what's happening in the community and like different conversations that are happening around the word. So okay. Do you have any tips around how to keep feeling attractive and sexy when you're single?
No, I don't. I think those are not, I think they're just true. I think you just are attractive no matter what your age, no matter what your physical appearance, no matter what your body type, you just are. Um, how you feel about yourself. And there are going to questions will come up in my line of work that I am unqualified to answer. And I think body image concerns, particularly very deep-seated body image concerns or physical appearance concerns, should be addressed with a licensed therapist. And I am not one of those. Um, I don't know how to tell people to continue to feel beautiful as they age because I'm angry that society ever told them they stopped being beautiful at a certain age.
Yeah.
Um, if you need reminders though, I can't necessarily give you advice on this, but I can tell you this. Stop looking at the youth as arbiters of beauty. Like youth culture is ridiculous, but you won't know that until you get older. Um, People fall in love at every age. People marry at every age. Anna Winter has a new boyfriend. Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna believe that it stops. It never stops. You choose when it stops. You choose how you feel. You choose when you are over. And in my opinion, we are never over. We're not necessarily going to get that reflected back to us in society, but I don't give a shit what society thinks about how I look. I genuinely do not. or my age or my body or whatever. If you have significant body image issues that are preventing you from living a full life, that is something to discuss with a therapist, and I strongly suggest that people do. But just like the casual day-to-day societal notion that you are expiring like a tub of forgotten yogurt, it's ridiculous to me, and it's just serving patriarchy. It's just because there's a prize put on youth because there is a limited amount of intelligence that youth have. They haven't lived long enough to know what older women know. And so we vilify and chronify older, wiser women who won't put up with men's bullshit. That's all that means. Your lack of beauty or your decreasing beauty or whatever, it's just serving patriarchy. So every time you look at yourself in the mirror or go out or whatever and look amazing, you're just giving the patriarchy the finger, and I hope that makes you feel wonderful. But remind yourself that love happens at every age. Look at more than just young couples. Look at couples at literally every phase of life. I don't care if it's your first marriage or your fifth, it doesn't matter. Love is allowed to happen to everybody, and it actually does happen to everybody. Love is not reserved for the young, beauty is not reserved for the young, sex is not reserved for the young. But we're never encouraged to teach ourselves that until we get to that age. And by the time we get to that age, we probably feel pretty bad because of all the stuff we've already observed. So yeah, I think that's where my answer is.
Great. Love it. All right. So this one comes up a lot, I think, for both the people who are single and who have that intersectionality of being childless too, or people who are partnered and childless. So I think this will be good for all of it. Yeah, go for it. So what advice do you have for dealing with feeling excluded or invisible, like you're not part of society?
Make your own society. Find your own community. Build your own community. Do not wait for other people to remember you. You will be waiting a while. And that's not me being an asshole saying that. That's just the truth of things. We feel forgotten all the time, but we never ask ourselves how often we're thinking of other people either.
Yeah.
And like sitting around and waiting for people to remember that you exist is going to make you feel terrible. Remembering you exist is going to make you feel better. Seeking out community in whatever way you can, whatever way you feel safe, whatever way you feel comfortable. We have the internet, and for all of its flaws, it does lend itself to building more community, but also it's not the only way. Like there are more ways than I can count, and they're going to vary by person. Community can be found in church, it can be found at work, it can be found at the gym, it can be found through hobbies, it can be found through education. It really is what you make of it. You can choose to think you have no options for connecting with others, or you can choose to try. And I can't say that our trying will always be rewarded, but waiting for the world to remember you is a really, really, really fast way to feel forgotten.
Yeah. I'm seeing some comments in the chat coming in of people saying like, how on earth do you build community? And I wonder if like maybe the word community feels really big, and a good place to start is with your support system. So just thinking about like building in those people in your life who are showing up for you in the way that you want and that you can show up for, and that you're getting what you need from them. And maybe that's just starting with like a few people that you're close to. And I know that takes work and it's like hard to find those people, but you mentioned a lot of great ways to do it. I have moved to it sounds like you move a lot too, but I've moved in the last decade. About every like couple of years I've moved. I think I've done like 6 or 7 moves in the last decade to different states. And it is possible. Like you have to get out into community and be, really like I feel like active and like putting yourself in situations where you can meet people. And it is tiring, but yeah.
You also have to be realistic. Be realistic in what you are expecting and asking of others. It can't just be you like putting all your needs onto a couple of friends. You have to take responsibility for your own needs as well. And in moments where you really feel isolated, when you really feel like you have no one, what has comforted me in those moments, and I do have them all the time, is taking care of myself. How can I give to myself what I want other people to give to me? And this skill set, by the way, will serve you so well in partnership too, because if you want your partner to handle absolutely everything for your well-being, your mood, your self-worth, that relationship will not last long. that overburdens a relationship. Being able to take on responsibility for your own self-worth and whatever you can give to yourself that you would ask of friends, just practicing it, giving it a try, like knowing that you're not helpless in having your needs met because you can meet a lot of your own. It's just really good education to give yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody mentioned that I'm in a couple. So when I was saying that like I have found ways to make friends and someone said, yeah, but you're in a couple. And yes, that is absolutely true. I think when it comes to friendships, my friendships are very individual where my couplehood doesn't come into how I look for friends or engage with friends typically that much. So the ways that I've made friends are going alone to things like classes that I'm interested in, workshops, different community events, getting on Bumble BFF. Like they're all things that I do individually, and I know that that's different. I'm not saying it's like the same thing, but I just wanted to clarify that the ways that I built friends when I moved to a new community, I am doing things on my own. It's not like looking for couples friends or anyway.
I don't think you have to disclaim it. People can, yeah, but you into oblivion. There will always be something about you or something about me or something about everyone that somebody else feels is an advantage that they do not have. I will feel that way about other people. It's always going to be that way. You can always look at somebody's life and say their grass is greener, therefore mine is brown and dying. But I think that's a choice. You can say, yeah, but to anything. How do you choose to show up in your own life? And by the way, all the ways you've described making friends are how single people do it too. I don't necessarily think that partnership is a ticket to friendship or a ticket to community. I think there is a certain element to a woman having a partner that softens the society around her. I think
Yes,
that's
I
going to,
agree.
for
Yeah, I
sure.
agree.
But I mean, maybe I don't care about appearing soft if you haven't guessed, but like there is a warmth that she will receive that single women will not. But
Yep.
until we can start showing people that single women do deserve that warmth and that we also give it back, nothing's going to change. So I would rather be out there giving the warmth I want to receive and showing people this is what a single woman looks like. Somebody you want to be friends with, somebody you want in your life, somebody you want to invite over to the barbecue that's all families. We would like
Mhm.
to attend and we'll
Yeah.
we'll bring yummy stuff too. Like there's just you have to show people the benefit of you sometimes. And I wish that wasn't always our burden, but I'm happy to do it because I think it affects change.
Yep. I know we're at time. We have three more questions, so I'm just gonna ask, would you have time to stay for a few more minutes to do these quickly, or do you have a hard stop?
No, I know.
Okay, so we'll do these three. I'm not gonna have time if new ones come in because everyone knows I'm terrible at ending anything on time and I'm trying to get better at it, but we'll do these three and I'll not keep butting in with my own ideas, but I will let you answer, Shani, these last three, and then we'll wrap it up. So we kind of talked about this, but someone asked, how do you find to make friends in your 40s? When you're single and childless, I'm finding it almost impossible. Friends have disappeared into their partnered parenting lives. And sorry, it's covered on my screen. Sorry, something's blocking it. Friends have disappeared into their partnered parenting lives, or they're making friends with other parents and couples.
Yeah, that's a natural course of being a parent. First of all, you're going to lose all your parent friends for the first 12 months. I mean, my God, they disappear into a hole that I can't fathom. And
Yeah.
that's just where they're going to be. That's just where they're going to be. The only way that I've maintained friendships with people with a newborn is by bringing them dinner. I just bring dinner over to their house and I get, once the baby goes to sleep, I get a good hour with the mom, just like chatting a bit, but that's the max because so much is being asked of them. But also a natural result of having a child in school is that you just meet the parent friends. That's part of something that happens, but also like those are friends that they didn't necessarily choose. Those are friends that life chose them for them. They chose you. They wanted to be friends with you. They're going to have less availability. That is a natural consequence of having a child. That is a natural consequence of changing jobs. Like there's all kinds of things that can put a wrench in the amount of time you see with someone, but that doesn't mean the friendship has to end. It just means like adjustments need to be made and you don't have to do all the heavy lifting to keep that friendship going. You can let it change its pace until that person is in a place where like they want to pick up that pace again because they have remembered, oh, I don't necessarily like any of these moms. I just have to be friends with them because my kid likes playing with their kid. Like remind them that you were someone they chose, or remind yourself that you were someone that they chose. Also, if you're a single person, your single friends are the only group of friends that have a hole in the bucket because people partner all the time. That's what happens. That is no need for resentment. That is just a need for a couple things to happen: adjustments to relationships and adjustments to expectations. Because remember, you wouldn't want to spend less time with your new partner to hang out with your friends. So why would you want them to stop hanging out with this new partner to hang out with you? Like flip it around and it makes it easier. But also you do need to replenish your single friends because you're going to lose them if you want. You don't have to, but like they will partner up. People will partner up. You will too. It's a constant flow. Like expecting all of your relationships to be stagnant and always stay the same, sounds boring to me, but also is just unrealistic. So how to make new friends is the number one question I get in my community, which I love. I love that nobody's asking me, where do I find my husband? Because they know I will breathe fire if they ask me to answer that question. But how to make new friends is not something exclusive to singles. It's not something exclusive to anyone. Nobody as a grown-up knows how to make new friends because we were so spoiled in school. We were constantly around people in our age bracket, people in our phase of life. Making friends was effortless. It takes more effort as an adult. The comforting thing for me is any effort you put into making new friends as an adult is far more likely to lead to a positive result than effort you put into trying to find a partner. In my experience, that has been the case, and for many others. But it's I know it's difficult. I know it's terrifying. There's no secret. I think that's what I would want people to know is there is no secret how to make new friends. There is no secret to it. Try. If you want to make new friends, try.
Okay, so we have two more questions. I think one will be really quick. And I am going to pull up your links to get us prepared for wrap up, and I will be adding them to the chat so that if you want to connect with Shani's work, there's a few different ways you can do it, and I'm going to be looking for those and popping them into the chat. So telling you that because I'm going to look distracted for a minute while I'm pulling these up, and so it's not because I'm not interested in what you're saying, but I'm going to find these and get them in the chat for people. So what is your favorite word for a single woman if you don't like spinster?
Her name.
That's not my question that came in.
Her name. Just her name. That's it. We don't have to call her anything. She isn't anything different than she was when she was born. We are not born partnered. Partnership is actually the change that occurs. Singlehood is the natural state of being. Her name.
All right. And here's our last question. So someone asked, do you think attachment styles come into a lot of this? Like if you're securely attached or even avoidant, then perhaps a lot of this becomes easier. But if anxiously attached, then perhaps a lot of standing up for yourself, building community, celebrating yourself might be that much harder.
Okay. So my thoughts on the book Attached are as follows. I think it's a great book and I think it's helped a lot of people. But I also think people have fallen into the trap of making their attachment style their entire reason for being and their entire personality, and they blame everything in their lives on their attachment style. So no, I don't think it comes into play because there are anxious, avoidant people who are married happily right now. There are every type, every attachment style is in love, is employed, has great friendships. Like it's not a limitation upon you. It really isn't. And I don't like how strongly people cling to their attachment style as a reason for everything that they don't like in their lives happening. I don't find that to be productive. If that is you, totally valid. Like I'm not shaming anyone for doing this, but I do suggest actually speaking to a licensed therapist rather than just reading this book, because there's no reason that your life should be limited by archetypes that you read in a book, but I see it happening repeatedly. So it's a concern of mine, actually. So no, I don't want anyone to feel held back from life because of their attachment style. Their attachment style is valid and they came by it very honestly and very valid. So did I. But I refuse to let it be a limitation upon anyone's life, particularly on a single woman's life.
That's a great answer. I love that. Okay, so I have in the chat a few different ways to connect with Shani. So I've got your Instagram account, your website, and then for some reason when I tried to do your link to your book on Amazon. It's really, really long. I don't know
Okay.
what it added on a whole bunch of stuff, but anyway, that is, if you click it, it should go to the right place. And then how to become a member on your Patreon if you want to be listening into Shani's podcast. So all those links are in the chat, but Shani, I would love to just hear a little bit about if you want to share about like your work, and if people are wanting to learn more about kind of like what you offer in these different avenues, just tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. Yeah, you've hit on a lot of the main stuff. My podcast publishes every Monday morning, and it only publishes on Patreon. That's the only way to listen to new episodes. I've been doing this for 4.5 years now, which is wild to say out loud. So there's a lot to listen to. I've had some incredible guests over the years, and in recent years, I've also started doing way more solo episodes that are heavily led by entirely led by audience questions. And I've been getting a lot of really positive feedback to those. I love doing them, and my audience likes hearing them. The book is obviously on Amazon. It is designed to be a comfort and supportive, and the chapters are such that you can read the whole thing start to finish, and I hope you do, and I hope you love it. But they are also labeled so that whatever stressor you happen to be going through in the moment in your singlehood, you can go back to that chapter and address that specifically, because there are so many different points throughout singlehood that we've been taught to have shame about. And so I wanted to address all of those and just rip the shame apart, because I don't think we deserve it. So podcast is one way. The book is another way. I also write 2 Substacks if anybody has interest there. I have an advice column if you want to choose what I talk about, and I have another one called Cheaper Than Therapy, which I choose what I talk about, and it involves singlehood, but it also involves things like aging. It involves a lot of 1980s parenting, that old chestnut. There's a lot of things that I think people our age are experiencing, and I say our age, like I'm 41, but I think 10 up, 10 down is a good range for who I'm speaking to. And I've been loving just sort of addressing things that affect us that the world doesn't necessarily reflect, because again, we are obsessed with youth culture, and things are just continually made for younger and younger people. And if you have aged out of the internet, so to speak, Cheaper Than Therapy is very much designed for you. And all of my Substacks are linked on my website. So if you go to my website, you'll find everything. And I think those are the main things that I like to do with my day: a book, a podcast, and 2 newsletters. I think that's enough busy
Like
for
nothing. You're just like bored all day, like doing
TikTok.
nothing.
Also, TikTok takes up a ridiculous amount of time. You would not think it would, but it's been really exciting to be on a platform that is like not for me, but
Yeah.
speaking to things that are really resonating. And I joined TikTok because you'll see, if you look at the reviews of my book, a lot of people said, I wish I'd had this 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
I decided to go 10 years in the past and go on TikTok where younger people were, and like start changing the narrative about singlehood there. Mixed results, but that's okay. I'm having fun.
Well, I applaud you for that. That's awesome. I tried to get on TikTok. I think maybe the difference is that there is a huge child-free by choice community on TikTok already. Childless not by choice, there's not much, but I also think that that's not something people are thinking about or looking like when they're younger. So I kind of gave up on that, despite all of my nieces telling me that that's where I need to be. So I'm going to let that go, but I'm so glad that you are taking that on to be kind of a voice and have representation there for kind of a younger audience. Not that everyone on TikTok's younger, but it does skew quite a bit younger, and it's great that you're there. So I did have trouble with the links because I just sent them to Shani originally. It went to like just the panelists and not everybody. So I've got them all fixed now. You should be able to see them. And one got linked 3 times. Don't worry about it. They're all there. Just start clicking on all of them and all of her good stuff's going to come up. Yeah, thank you for being here with me and sharing your thoughts, and thank you to everybody who joined. It was really nice to have you in the chat and to hear your questions. And yeah, it's just a great conversation. I really appreciate your time and just all that you're doing in this space to give representation to a perspective that we don't hear enough from in public discourse. I'm really excited that people like you and others in the single community, others who are part of childless and child-free communities. Like I'm so, I don't know what the right word is, just like inspired at how the internet and social media and having these like spaces where we can connect and gather and have these conversations and then make them available to like a wider, have a wider reach. I love seeing these conversations are happening, because why is it 2023 and there's only like a few little corners of the internet that these conversations are happening on? There's so much work to do, but I just want to applaud you for being a pioneer in taking this on and doing such a great job at it. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Likewise. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Guys, thank you so much.